what's happening. EU pushes for more sanctions, which will come back to bite it. This is analysis about what's happening overseas. So, of course, we know that on February 22nd, 2 days before Russian troops entered Ukraine, the US and EU put reams of sanctions onto Russia. They also confiscated some $300 billion of Russia's reserves that were invested in the West. No, actually, stole. The sanctions had been negotiated between the EU and the US and prepared for over several months. The idea was to bankrupt Russia within a few weeks. The deluded people behind those sanctions had no idea how big and sanctions proved Russia's economy really is. The sanctions failed to influence Russia in any way, but their consequences led to a shortfall of energy in Europe and increased the already high inflation rates. Inflation in Russia is sinking, and its general economic numbers are good. The now higher energy prices generate sufficient additional income to completely finance its war efforts. In addition to the fact that they've made deals with India and China and Pakistan. I thought they tried to make one in Pakistan, but now that they outed their leader, I don't know where they're at with that. Iran, of course, a sane actor, of course, would conclude that the sanctions were a mistake and that lifting them would help Europe more than it would hurt Russia, more than it would help Russia. But no, the US and European pseudo-elites are no longer able to act in a sane manner. They're instead doubling down with the most crazy sanctions scheme one has ever heard of. The EU pushed ahead on Wednesday with an ambitious but untested plan to limit Russia's oil revenue. If the global price of oil remains high, it would complicate the EU's effort to impose a price cap on Russian oil that was expected to gain final approval on Thursday after EU negotiators reached an agreement on the measure as part of a fresh package of sanctions against Moscow. Wait, what? Yeah. Under the plan, a committee including representatives of the European Union, the group of 7 nations, and others that agree to the price cap would meet regularly to decide on the price at which Russian oil should be sold, and that it would change based on the market price. So this is basically like a mob, a mafia. Several diplomats involved in the EU talks said that Greece, Malta, and Cyprus, maritime nations that would be most affected by the price cap, received assurances that their business interests would be preserved, the diplomat said. Wait, what? Yeah. The countries had been holding up what would be the 8th sanctions package that the EU has adopted since the Russian invasion of Ukraine because of worries that a price cap of Russian oil exported outside the bloc would affect their shipping, insurance, and other industries, the diplomat said. Wait, what? Dude, this is such a crazy story. With oil prices at a high, Russia is raking in billions of dollars in revenue even as it sells smaller quantities. The cap, part of a broad plan pushed by the Biden administration that the G7 agreed to last month, is intended to set the price of Russian oil lower than where it is today, but still above cost. The U.S. Treasury calculates that the cap would deprive the Kremlin of tens of billions of dollars annually. Nothing. How do you make a big producer of a rare commodity sell those goods below the general market price? Unless you have a very strong buyer's cartel that can also produce that product that can also source that product from elsewhere, you cannot do this successfully. It is an economic impossibility.
Yep.
To make the measure effective and cut Russian revenue, the U.S., Europe, and their allies would need to convince India and China, which buy substantial quantities of Russian oil, to purchase it only at the agreed-upon price. Experts say that even with willing partners, the cap could be hard to implement. That's tied.
Sure.
Russia's declared that it will not sell any oil to any party that supports the G7 price-fixing regime. I don't blame them. That is why neither China nor India nor any other country besides the EU and US will agree to adhere to it. So,
damn.
Hello. The whole idea is crazy and way too complicated to achieve anything. Under the new rules, companies involved in the shipping of Russian oil, including ship owners, insurers, and underwriters, would be on the hook for ensuring that the oil they're helping to transport is being sold at or below the price cap. Wait a minute. a transport company that is literally moving this stuff between. Now they need to know exactly what it's being sold at, and that it's being sold at the market price that the EU, that NATO countries are saying the Russian oil should be sold at or less. Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Or more, actually, because what they want to do is they want to drive the price high.
Played yourself.
Yes, they did. All right. So if they're caught helping Russia sell at a higher price, they could face lawsuits in their home countries for violating sanctions. Oh, that's weird. Okay, they don't want to see Russia drive up the price, except that they're gonna drive up where are they gonna set their price in relation to Russian pricing? I don't quite understand how this works. All right, Russian crude will come under an embargo in most of the EU on December 5th, and petroleum products will follow in February. The price cap on shipments to non-EU countries has been championed by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen as a necessary complement to the EU oil embargo. Under the EU deal, Greece, Malta, and Cyprus will be permitted to continue shipping Russian oil. Had they not agreed to place their companies at the forefront of applying the price cap, they would have been forbidden from shipping or insuring Russian oil cargo outside the European Union. A huge hit for major industries. Again, protecting capitalism. This is what this is all about. Capitalism. More than half the tankers now shipping Russia's oil are Greek-owned. And the financial services that underpin that trade, including insurance, reinsurance, and letters of credit, are overwhelmingly based in the EU and Britain. Why are they doing all this? They're undercutting themselves. This is moronic. Right? This is, of course, an open invitation to other countries to enter the oil shipping and related financial services businesses at the cost of the European companies. You think China's not going to rush in to grab this? China and India will both do it to increase their market shares in those fields. Their ships will transport Russian oil to whoever wants to buy it for the market price, minus the always negotiable Russian rebate. Reef ships will sit idle or be sold off, while Indian and Chinese and other Asian tankers will be very, very busy. Chinese big insurance companies will happily join that new global services business. That European bureaucrats agreed to this stupid U.S. idea, which will foremost hurt European businesses, is another sign that Brussels has given up on having any agency. Today, OPEC countries, the seller cartel for oil, reacted to the crazy sanctions idea and the upcoming global depression by agreeing to decrease their daily output by 2 million barrels. Why? This was not done out of Saudi Arabia's solidarity with Russia. Saudi Arabia needs oil at above $80 a barrel to finance its budget. Brent crude, which had fallen to $83 a barrel on September 26th, has since risen to $93. The global demand for oil is around 100 million barrels per day. Should the demand stay up, 2% reduction in OPEC production will have significant price effects, and $100 per barrel will be an easy reach. But OPEC is committed to stable prices, not to significant price increases. During the OPEC session today, at the Saudi Prince Abdulaziz showed this table, right? So this is a big table, and it's messy, and how much per ton or metric ton, and what does this mean? Since the beginning of the year, the prices for all forms of carbon-based energy except crude oil have increased considerably. The Saudi prince argued that the chart shows that OPEC is managing oil prices responsibly. The EU is certainly not doing similar. Biden administration has meanwhile nearly halved the content of the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve. This is to keep U.S. pump prices down and the Democrats in power. It might or might not. Again, this is showing the size of the SPR. Like literally, it's at its lowest level since the 1980s.
Okay.
Neither is a responsible step to take. And that's our new banner.
Well,
with all our links and logos and
nice
stuff. Check that badass out. Try to make it consistent. All the eyes are microphones.
What did you just J-Rock us? You'd be like, check that bastard out, Mafk.
Ah!
What?
Oh, God.
Mafk?
Yeah. That's awful.
Wah.
Trailer Park Boys is just
J-Rock,
addictive
dude.
and awful and
So good.
holy crap. Okay. So that is our last story about sanctions. EU is shooting itself in the foot and doing it to help to quote unquote help America. Nobody's helping. They're not going to help.
Nope.
What they're helping is to accelerate potential world war, which we don't want. Of course. I mean, it's going to be a cold winter in Europe right now. It's going to be a mess. So I'm a little concerned.